the operating table, 8 weeks ago, I was dreaming of this moment, and it certainly isn't the fairy tale ending that I wanted. He took full ownership of the way he played in this game. So because he's Aaron Rodgers, you expect the cape to go on. Sometimes it doesn't, and in this case it didn't. And you have to obviously rust on him, and you have to credit the Carolina defense as well.
No question. So good for them, and Carolina gets a big win going forward. We continue.
Off the top.
How about the Lakers? They're going to retire not one but two numbers, and they're for the same player. Kobe Bryant tonight, number 8 and 24 at halftime against the Warriors.
Yeah, pretty amazing. He wore number 8 for the first 10 seasons of his career before making the switch to number 24 following the 05-06 season. The amazing thing is, when you look at his stats, they're almost identical.
Right.
10 years with each jersey. The point differential is basically, it's less than 100. The titles, he won 3 with number 8, and he won 2 with number 24. Finals MVP, 2 with number 24, none with number 8. It was Shaq was winning them. But, I mean, it is just amazing from assist to score to total points. It's just stunning how close he was with both those jersey numbers, and more power to him. And I love what the Warriors are doing.
Absolutely.
For this game. This is going to be at halftime of the game against the Warriors, and the Warriors are coming out to watch. Like Steve Kerr said, he said, with that going on, I'm going to sit there and go over tape and adjustments at halftime. No. One of the greatest players of all time is getting his jersey retired. He said, we're going to go watch this thing. So I think that's very cool.
Here's the full quote from Kerr, and this is why players love playing for him, okay? Just the experience in seeing one of the greatest players in the history of the game getting his jersey retired, and we happen to be there, Steve Kerr said. I'm not going to keep them in the locker room to watch tape of the first half. The players would look at me like I was nuts. There's something interesting going on the floor. Let's go out there.
Very cool.
Yeah. Context is everything. You can talk about tape in any other game. This is something that's history. You're seeing one of the greatest players that's ever put on a uniform in the NBA. You might as well go out there and be a part of it.
Another number. So scored points and assisted points. The total when he wore number 28, 23,964. The total when he wore number 24, 23,986.
Wow.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Consistency is important.
Just amazing. What a player. What a great player. What a mindset on that player. And, hey, congrats to him. 2 numbers. Why not?
The Mamba mentality playing out with those numbers. Absolutely. We continue.
Off the top.
LeBron James powered the Cavs past the Warriors thanks to 20 points, 12 rebounds, and 15 assists. The second time in his career he's had a triple-double in 3 straight games. He also logged at least 10 assists in 5 straight games. That's the longest stretch of his career.
And it was past the Wizards, not the Warriors. But maybe against the W.
Yeah, the Wizards.
Close to the same thing. It would probably be more of a headline if it was against the Warriors.
That would be true, yes.
Certainly would. They're sitting there now only 1 loss behind the Celtics, who are 25-7. The Cavaliers are 23-8. And he did a long article talking about how good he feels now and how, he thinks going, in the next group of players coming up that we're going to see players playing later into their careers. We've talked about that more and more in this day and age with the way players are treating their bodies, taking care of themselves. We'll see where this goes. I don't know if they'll be able to play at his level that late into their career, but I think you'll see guys playing a little bit older. And also, Dave McMenamin is reporting that Isaiah Thomas, who we thought may be coming back for the Cavs before Christmas, is not going to return before Christmas, which is, as we've been talking about, coming up in just a week. But to me, outside of there being a setback and it affecting when he's going to come back because he re-injured something, if it's taking a little longer, so what? Who cares?
Right.
They're doing just fine now. Make sure he's fine when he gets back on the court and he's ready for the playoffs. That's a big thing.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how much of an adjustment it takes when Isaiah Thomas does come back in, because there was that adjustment at the start of the season for the Cavs, and then they've certainly turned that around. There's no question about that. That was Off the Top. We are Golick and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers. For all of your last-minute gift needs, visit 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen Mary Red Roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Okay, it's interesting that we're talking about this earlier, about traveling and getting people home for the holidays. You saw what happened in Atlanta yesterday, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine?
No.
I mean, that's just, for people that somehow don't know, Atlanta on any given day is probably the busiest airport in America, either there or O'Hare in Chicago. Well, they had a power outage at a terminal, and all flights coming in and out of Atlanta on Sunday, the week before Christmas, was shut down.
We're shut down.
Absolutely shut down.
And planes that had landed that were out on the tarmac had to stay out there for hours because there was no power at the gates. So what a complete mess that had to be. My Atlanta story when the Super Bowl was there and the ice storm. Now, this was back when Mark Malone was NFL Tonight. And
correct.
Me and we would do the Super Bowl, and then myself and Mark and Sean Salisbury was doing it with us and Merrill Hodge. Any combination of us, and it happened to be a year I was going that year, we'd go to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl. And we'd fly right from the Super Bowl to the Pro Bowl.
What did you say? Where would you go?
To Hawaii, a place that you know and love very well. Well, that was the ice storm time in Atlanta. We got on a plane, me, Malone, and I believe it was Sean Salisbury. We got on a plane. We were on the tarmac for 8 hours. 8 hours because we couldn't take off, and then we would have to get back in line to be de-iced. And the pilot kept telling us, we can't go back to the gate and let you off because we'll lose our place in line to be de-iced, and it'll just take longer. I actually watched 3, because it was a long flight, they offer the movies, 3 complete movies.
Before you took off?
Before we even took off. And then we couldn't make it all the way to Hawaii on the connection. We stopped in San Francisco. We had to get off, go spend about 3 hours in a hotel, and then go back on. But the destination was Hawaii.
I was about to say,
you know what? We were able to manage to deal with all of that because of where we were going.
It's always about what's in front of you. That's why going to Hawaii is always much better than the return. Because you could put up with anything on the way out because you know where you're ending up.
You're going to work the Pro Bowl, which
that's not work.
Kids, it's very difficult work.
It was very tough work being there on the beach in Waikiki in front of Hilton Hawaiian Village.
Right.
It was back-breaking work. It was terrible.
But back to it, you're right about that. That's horrible. I mean, around holiday and flights, if that gets screwed up, it can just be so. You feel awful for the people that got nailed in that one.
Yeah, that was just brutal. So anyway, we hope that the power's back on, and hopefully everybody's getting where they need to go, and they get there in time for their holiday plans and all that kind of stuff. And it was somewhat of a holiday plan over the weekend for the OKC Thunder. It was
like reunion weekend,
it was.
Right?
They started in Indianapolis last weekend with Paul George going back to play against the Pacers. Then over the weekend, Carmelo returned against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. And it was kind of an interesting thing. We all thought, hey, he's probably going to get booed. And he got booed a little bit.
A little.
But my God, they welcomed him back in about the coolest way possible.
They did. You had a video for him as well. There were way more cheers than boos. Now, when he touched the ball, he got booed a little bit there. But I knew Paul George was going to get booed because Paul George said, I'm leaving.
Correct.
I think it turned out to be Carmelo Anthony against Phil Jackson. I know. And Phil Jackson was just vilified by everybody in New York. So whether you think Carmelo Anthony was right in any of the way he did anything, it maybe doesn't matter. He just looked better than Phil Jackson did in that situation. And Phil is collecting his money with his feet up on the porch in Montana, while Carmelo went on to play for OKC. So I thought he may get treated well when he went back there by the fans, because, again, it's the perception and reality. I mean, he was trying to stay there. Now, was he trying to stay there more to stick it to Phil, who wanted him to leave? That's what I mean. You don't know kind of the inner workings of that.
Possibly.
But he looked way better in that scenario than Phil Jackson did. So I'm happy he got. I'm happy. It doesn't matter to me how he got treated, but I'm sure he was happy that it was a nice ovation for him.
Well, look, I thought it was a cool way to handle it. You know, the Knicks sort of understood what he meant to them all those years, and they acknowledged that, which I thought was very, very cool. And you're right, he did get booed once he touched the ball, but as they were showing the tribute and everything, it was a pretty cool moment. And Melo was asked afterwards about how he wants to be remembered for his time in New York.
Somebody who wanted to be here, came here, did what he had to do, night in and night out, whether people liked it or not. Remained positive through all the negative situations, all the negative times. Stuck with it, through good times, through bad times. Somebody who, had hopes and dreams of winning the championship here in New York and fell short at that. It's deeper than basketball when it comes to me in this city.
Listen, they tried, right? They bring him in. You bring Amari Stoudemire in. You try and build around. Then you bring Phil Jackson in, thinking that it's Phil Jackson and free agents may come flocking because it's Phil Jackson.
That didn't work.
No, and there were more than a few people that didn't think that was going to work if he was going to be the president. Now, if he sat on the court as a coach, maybe it would have been different, but he wasn't going to do that. So, they thought they were going to be able to get it done with him, and they didn't. So now they're in that rebuild mode. But I tell you what, with Porzingis, you're in a pretty good way. And the way you're now going forward in where this team can currently end up, as they sit, where are they sitting right now? They're sitting 6, 16, and 13. Porzingis is without question one of the big superstars in the league. So they may eventually get where they wanted to go, but it'll be without the big money guy in Stoudemire they brought in. Obviously, the trade for Carmelo and bringing in Phil to bring it all together. They're all gone now, and it's going to be Kristaps Porzingis is the one that's going to maybe lead them closer to the promised land.
Yeah, and of course, Porzingis didn't play in that game because of the soreness to the knee. And Phil was, remember, they were talking about moving. Phil was talking about moving Porzingis as well.
Oh, so, he was. Oh boy.
As you said,
best thing they did was move Phil.
Correct. I mean, when they brought him in, he was never really in. I mean, that was the problem with Phil.
Exactly
in New York.
right.
He put his toe in the water.
He was money whipped, right?
Correct.
I mean,
exactly
no. Wait, you're going to pay me how much? All right, I'll come hang out there in New York for a little bit.
If you insist, I'll come in and deign you with my presence.
Now he's sitting at home for a couple more years, getting 12 mil a year.
On that level, hey man, be you. You do you. I understand that part, but you can certainly understand the issues that Phil left behind and how fans in New York are sort of really upset about how that all ended.
Yeah, because if Phil came back for a reunion and got introduced, it might be a little different of a reaction.
I don't think there'd be a tribute. I don't think there'd be a video tribute, or at least not one he would want.
No.
By the way, Michael Beasley started at 4 for the Knicks and went 11 of 18 from the floor, scored 30 points. Beasley is making $2.1 million this season. Melo and Paul George are combining to make $45.7 million this season, and his return to the Garden, he and George combined to go 11 of 32 for 30. Melo had 12 on 5 of 18. So the struggle for the Thunder continues trying to work into this.
We talked about that when Paul George and OKC went to play Indiana.
Yep.
Oladipo had been playing better, had been averaging more points than George did the previous year in Indiana. So it's working out for both those teams at this point that Paul George left and that Melo left.
Yeah, Melo didn't score in the second half. So maybe he was a little spent after the game in Philadelphia. That was a triple overtime.
That was a great game, by the way. The triple OT game with Embiid and Russell Westbrook telling each other to go home. It was awesome. Yeah,
that was fun.
Love Embiid.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there going forward. But again, it was a nice. I think the Knicks treated it the way they should have.
I agree.
And the struggles continue for the Oklahoma City Thunder as they just can't seem to find a way to cohesively work together with Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony. All right, coming up. More on the controversial finish between the Patriots and Steelers, which in reality wasn't really controversial. The issue is the rule and how it's not how it's applied. It's how people understand the rule more than anything else. Jeff Saturday will join us in studio. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the finish of the Cowboys game and everything that went on a crazy Week 15 in the NFL. That after a word from Untuckit.com.
Untuckit shirts are made to look great, designed at the perfect length, not too short, not too long. Untuckit makes shirt that you wear untucked. Shirts so well made, GQ calls them perfection. Incredible comfort, fantastic style, coming together